Free Tech Alliance, I'm Arms Bumanlag. Technology has been great for smaller businesses to compete with the big guys, and it's been a boon for those larger companies seeking to remain ahead of the pack. The importance of investing in technology is more important now than ever. I spoke with Duncan Stewart on insights for 2023's tech sector and how it affects Windsor-Essex and our daily lives in the new year.
Let's start off with semiconductors, and this will shock nobody who cares about the automotive industry, but it turns out that cars actually need chips in order to be built in 2022, 23, and beyond. That's why I've selected a couple of our chip predictions as relevance to Windsor-Essex right now, given the importance of the auto industry there. First of all, one of the things that we're seeing is AI in chip design. This is artificial intelligence. No, not ChatGPT. Different kinds of artificial intelligence tools are being used by chip designers to help speed up the process of creating new chips. This is a relatively new thing. We're predicting this is a multi-billion-dollar market growing at double-digit rates. Why does this matter for Windsor-Essex? The chips inside cars frequently are built on old technologies that are 10, 15, or 20 years old. Redesigning those chips for more modern process nodes, for the advanced nodes that we're seeing being built increasingly around the world, that takes time and that takes money. Frequently, there isn't the budget available for that for automotive chips. We think AI being used to design new generations of automotive chips so that they're smaller, cheaper, and use less power will be critical for cars going forward, especially, of course, electric vehicles. Speaking of electric vehicles, our next prediction that's so important is what we call supercharged semiconductors. These are not silicon chips, but rather chips made out of materials such as gallium nitride or GaN or silicon carbide, SiC. These are, once again, multi-billion-dollar markets growing 40, 60, even 80%. We are seeing these chips increasingly used in vehicles, especially all-electric vehicles. These are not so much the hybrids, but the battery electric vehicles. Inside those vehicles, you've got 400, 600, 800 volts energy levels, and those are too high for many conventional semiconductors. We see tremendous growth in silicon carbide, especially in electric vehicles. That's critical for the Windsor-Essex area as more and more electric cars get built inside Canada. The final one for specific application to Windsor-Essex I talk about is what I call the battle for the enterprise edge. Now, enterprise edge technology is, let's talk about a car factory. Let's talk about a car factory that creates a digital twin of itself so that you can look at a digital version of the factory and move things around and play around with things in real time that directly mimic what's actually going on the real world, the physical world factory floor. That kind of digital twin technology is processing intensive. You can do it in the cloud, but you don't want to be sending your data thousands of kilometers away. We believe that increasingly enterprise edge, which is a multi-billion-dollar technology, is something that will be used in the factories and the automobile factories of the future for things like digital twin, but other applications as well. So keep your eye on enterprise edge. One of the interesting things about that is that so far, no single player owns that market. Telcos are trying to get into this. Hyperscalers are trying to get into this. Technology, hardware manufacturers are trying to get into it. Nobody yet is the dominant player. It's a real battle for an exciting double-digit growth, multi-billion-dollar market.
Speaking of factories, Duncan, there's lots of smart factories in our area. Are technologies like 5G, VR, even the metaverse important now, or are they going to be important in the future?
It's a little early yet. 5G is coming along. It is growing. One of our predictions is that we will have the increasing launch, both in Canada and elsewhere, of what's called 5G standalone. 5G, as we've had it in Canada up until now, has been great from a consumer perspective. I have lots of ability to get hundreds of megabits of speed to my handset, but that's really not important in a smart factory. Smart factories instead need technologies like high device density, ultra low latency, and network slicing for the creation of private 5G networks. All of those technologies are enabled by 5G standalone, and we're predicting that will double in 2023 around the world and enable many or unlock many of the enterprise applications that are so important for smart factories. Another interesting thing going on is we are seeing much, much cheaper 5G modules. For the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen 5G in our phones, but they were $1,000, $2,000 phones. The modules inside that did the 5G were 50 or $100. That's way too expensive for most factories. We are seeing new, cheaper phones and cheaper 5G modules, and we think that will help drive Internet of Things smart factory applications. If I've got an automobile factory and I've got 1,000 or 10,000 devices inside a factory, I can't afford $50 per module, but $5 a module, and now you're talking. So we think that these new cheaper modules will unlock the potential for smart factories and 5G. The final thing I think I'd want to mention in this area is it's still early days. 5G is rolling out, but frankly, number of auto factories around the world that are using 5G. There's some of them, but not that many. It's still fairly early. Yes, there are cheaper modules, but modules are only part of it. Now, the last thing you talked about was the metaverse. We at Deloitte like calling that unlimited reality. It is going to be one day a huge technology, both consumer and enterprise. We see the metaverse market being worth trillions of dollars, but not until 2030 or so. We think in the near term, factories, smart factories, auto factories that are playing around with the metaverse will very much be playing around and experimenting with it. Early days yet. I know you don't cheer for the Blue Jays down in Windsor, Essex. You cheer for the Tigers. But from a baseball analogy here, we are very much in the first inning of the metaverse game. It is. We may even still be in spring training. It's going to be a big thing one day, but we're not there yet.
Well, Duncan, on the consumer front, what is the most interesting trend for, say, our personal lives and even media?
So I see that as what's going on with video on demand and streaming. Historically, in North America, in Canada, most consumers have gone to our video on demand through subscriptions. I pay about $15 a month Canadian, and I get what I want. I can watch what I want, when I want. I can binge, I can stream, all of that kind of stuff, and I pay money for it, but there's no ads. The other big part of this is, by and large, that didn't have any live sports on it. It was dramas and comedies and robots and dragons and all of that kind of fun stuff. We see two really big changes coming to streaming. First of them is the growth in ads. The streaming companies are reaching, frankly, the limits of market saturation in North America. Plus, of course, with higher interest rates, post-pandemic, people are getting back into the real world. We are seeing very high levels of churn, of people canceling their video on-demand services. Sometimes because they've watched what they want, but increasingly it's about money. People are trying to control their streaming spend. What we are seeing is the growth of either a what's called FAST, a free ad-supported TV model. That's where you spend absolutely nothing, no subscription fee at all, but you watch 10 or 12 minutes of ads per hour, or a hybrid model. This is the version where you pay a bit, but you watch a few ads as well. We see that Canadians, about 65% of Canadians, are actually interested in either one of those ad-supported video-on-demand markets and models. And we are looking for every single major video-on-demand provider to offer an ad-supported tier this year. And in 2024, we're expecting half of them to offer a free ad-supported tier. The other big thing going on in streaming is around sports, especially live sports. Historically, it's been technically hard for the streamers to provide it, and they really didn't have any interest. That's changing. We're predicting this year that $6 billion will be spent by the streamers on acquiring the rights to live sports. Now, that includes, it's a global market. That's cricket in India. That's football/soccer around the world. It is football, North American style, lots and lots of sports, lots of growth there. We think that that is a real shift. It's one of the things that streamers can do to control churn. If I'm watching my favorite show on a streaming service, I might binge every episode and think about canceling next month. I can't do that if my favorite sports team is still playing game after game every week. So we see growth in both ads and sports, helping reduce churn for the streaming companies.
Tech Talk continues. From business acceleration, building and engaging the tech community, and championing tech and innovation. Follow WeTech Alliance on social media or visit them on the web.